Hello my friends, I have a under the sea tutorial today of this awesome whale, and I'm doing the background in kind of rainbow colors using inktense. And I started out with a chili red in the Derwent inktense pencils, and then I went to cadmium yellow. And then my next color is field green. And then I started out with sea blue. I will go later and apply a darker blue over the top because it just wasn't bright enough for me. And then deep violet is the last color at the bottom. And then on the edges, I'm going to do ink black. Which, another issue with the inktense black is it's really hard to get it to look real dark, especially on a santorini. So you'll see that I have to go over it with something else because I want it a little bit darker. So now I'm taking my round brush. This is a watercolor brush, and I wet my brush real good. I like to have it a lot of water on it because I want to manipulate the ink around so that it doesn't look perfect, because I kind of want to make it look like it's in water, even though it's not traditional. I am using a picture from Pinterest as my inspiration, and so I do have something to follow. But I'm not doing it exactly like the picture. So I'm just going to keep moving that color around until I get it where I like it. Once it starts drying a little bit, I can tell in some areas it needs more color, so I'm going to go and apply more. And if you get to a point, as you see on the bottom where there's that little white spot, it gets to a point where you just got to stop and let it dry and then come back to it later, because you're just not going to get color to absorb. So this is where I started in with Lagoon in the Derwent, and that's much better. I'll give you a thumbs up. I like the way that came out so much better. So this is where I'm like struggling with the black, and so I'm going to get a Posca pen and water it down in black and add a little bit more color to just make it a little darker. I don't want it to be like jet black or anything. So again, at the top I'm adding some color where I need more color, and now I'm going to spray the rock down with just plain old water, put a paper towel on it, and see how it kind of gives you that sparkling look. I just wanted to take away from it being perfect, and perfect lines. I want there to look like there's reflections. So that's kind of what I'm doing, going back and forth and with the colors and trying to manipulate different things. So I just want it to look like reflections in the water. This is where I'm taking the Posca pen and I'm wetting the ink down, and I'm applying more just so it's a little bit darker on those corners. And then I'll let that dry. Now, I let it dry good, and as you see, the top is a little bit darker. I went back off camera. I forgot to push record, and I added a little more of that chili red to the top. Now I'm taking the Americana decoart white, and I'm going to slowly start layering that sun or the light source coming in from the top. So I'm going to start off real light, and I'm slowly going to build up and make it darker until I get it where I want it. And basically this is really watered down. I'm just letting it dry. It dries super fast. I'm using a scruffy brush, which you can, this one is just from use of dabbing, because I tend to do that a lot. But you can make a scruffy brush by cutting it down. Rachel Rocks Canada on YouTube has a couple of awesome videos for cutting your brushes down. So if you want to do that, you can check it out. I can leave a link to her YouTube down below. So I'm just going to keep building this up slowly. And again, I had the same issue. I had to stop and let it dry because it had a little space in the middle. I stopped, let it dry, and then I came back, and now I'm applying white again so that I could get that color to adhere. And now I'm kind of bringing the edges out a little bit. Kind of like how you do if you want fog or something. I kind of did it that method. So now I'm taking a charcoal pencil and in white, and I'm going to sketch out my well. Now, this is my first time doing, well, I've done another well before, but this is my first time really freehanding this well in, and I did kind of struggle. You're going to see, I made the belly too big, so I'm going to go and take some of the belly out and reshape the tail back and forth. And even when I get the charcoal pencil in, I'm going to end up using my paint to shape out everything how I want it. So that's just kind of how I work, I guess. I move the paint around and get it where I want it. This is the Americana decoart white again, and I'm just doing a light coat of white, just getting in the white part of the well first, and make sure that I have it, you know, like I like it before I put too much. Now, before I started drawing this well in, I did spray my rock a couple of times with Rust-Oleum 2 times matte spray. The reason that I did that is because on top of it I'm painting acrylic, and I knew I was doing freehand, and so I knew that I needed to have something there in case I messed up. I can go in and wipe it off with a wet Q-tip or something and redo it. So that was the purpose in doing that, and had I not sprayed it, I couldn't fix what I did. So I'm just kind of like working out the tail with some liner that I thinned out. This is by Liquitex Basics, and it's Mars Black. I thinned it out some with water, and I'm just kind of sketching in the black parts of the well. And once I get something where I like it, then I'll go ahead and fill it in. And I start out with that bottom fin, and then I decide to go ahead and take that extra belly out where that charcoal line is. So I'll bring that up in a minute. So now I'm just kind of starting to shape out the inside of the well with the black and get it where I like it. And I use several different brushes. This one brush that I'm using right now, I got a whole set on Amazon. Wistonia fine detail brushes is what they were. I don't even know if they're still available on Amazon, but I had gotten a couple of sets, gosh, over a year ago, and they're starting to get a little frayed. I'm gonna have to look into some new ones, but I have used the heck out of those, and they have really lasted. So I'm gonna go between that and a little finer brush that I had cut down to make it super fine for outlining. And the only other brush that I think I use is my round brushes that are, you can use them for watercolor or for acrylic. I have the smallest one in the lineup. I use some on this well too. So I have tons of brushes. I try to buy them when they're a good deal on Amazon, because when you work on rocks, you go through a lot of brushes. So I'm constantly buying a pack. This one brush that I'm using right now is a pack of filbert brushes, and they were a more expensive brand that I had gotten. I wanted to try them and just see if they would last longer, and actually they have. So I might get a nicer set and see if they last me longer on the finer brushes. So you saw I just wet a brush down, and I was taking all the charcoal lines out that I didn't need anymore. And now I'm putting another coat of white on the inside. Because I didn't chalk paint at first, which is what I usually do, I ended up having to put 3 or 4 coats of white of that Americana decoart. So I should have chalk painted it, but since I wasn't exactly sure where everything was gonna be, I just decided that I was just gonna go ahead and use the paint and just put several coats. There's not a ton of white on it anyways, so now I'm going back with some black and touching up some areas and starting to shape out the top part and any areas that I need to tweak. Now this is where I decided to pull that tail up a little bit. I used a wet Q-tip, and I was able to take some of that acrylic out. And now I'm working on the tail. The inside of the tail is going to be a gray, so I'm just working on the outside, the line and the edges of the tail. Now I'm making the gray with the white and the Mars black. I'm going to fill in that tail. And I like working with my little fine brush. It's just easier for me to control. It just takes a little bit longer. So now I'm going over the line. And I'm touching up more black. And why I'm doing this is because I'm letting one coat dry, and then I go on to something else, and then I let that dry and go on to something else. Now I mixed a really light gray, and I'm just putting some gray on the underbelly of the well just as a shadow. And now I made a little bit darker gray, and I'm going to make that other fin coming out in the middle. I'm just going to shape it out. And then I'm adding a little black towards the end so that it's darker. And I'm touching up some white again. Now I'm adding some gray at the top. I'm going to be working on the reflections on him from the light source at the top. And I'm going to just kind of try different colors. I did gray at first, and then I added a little blue to it just so that it was like water. But I just go back and forth, and I smudge a lot with my finger. By the end of this, my fingers were so full of paint, because I just tend to do stuff a lot with my fingers, especially if I'm smudging. So I just kind of did some crisscross patterns and stuff just to make it look like reflections of water on the top of his body. And then I'm going back with black to take out some if I got it too low. And now I'm shading some darker black from the bottom towards the top of the fin. And it's watered down so that I get a nice fade. And so at this point, I'm pretty happy with the well. So I'm going to draw in my little bubbles with the Posca 1MR. And I'm going to use foil. That's my favorite way to do bubbles now. So I use the SXC UV nail glue. And I'm just going to put a little dot of glue in each little circle. And then I'm going to hit it with the UV light. Make sure you only use a 6-watt UV light to set the glue, otherwise you can get problems with wrinkling or anything crazy happening. It just doesn't work right if it's too high of a UV watt. So I'm just putting glue in all the bubbles. Now I'm going to pull out my makkart light and start setting all those bubbles. I did that off camera so you don't have to sit through that. Now I'm using like a real small crushed glass for the foil. It kind of looks like real fine, or maybe even glitter kind of. And it just gives it a cute little sparkle glitter in your bubbles. So now I'm getting towards the end, and I decided I wanted a little bit of shine and color mix. So I pulled out my Arteza iridescent paints, and also I'm going to use a colorshift paint here in a minute, which they're a lot alike. And I'm just using light colors. I used black on the bottom. It shifts to gold, which is really cool because the top of the colors are, you know, orangey and yellow, and shining down on the black, it makes it kind of look like I did that on purpose. So that was a happy accident. And then I did the purple on the purple part, and then a blue, and then I used turquoise color shift on the green because it shifts to a blue. And then I'm going to use a little bit of yellow and a little bit of orange. And I'm not really doing it perfectly. I'm just kind of going in and dabbing. And my brush is watered down, so it's not like super color shift bright. Now I'm taking a metallic pearl and I'm just putting it on the light source. Wherever I have the little rays and the light at the top of the water is where I'm putting the pearl. And then I'm going to add a little bit to his body and the top of the fin. And I'm just about done. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you try it. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.